The vastness of space stretched before the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Aurelia, a canvas of infinite black punctuated by distant stars. Captain Mark Dorn stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the ship's instruments. Deep lines etched around his eyes spoke of 20 years navigating the political complexities of space as much as its physical dangers. The Aurelia drifted in neutral territory, awaiting humanity's first official contact with the blue-skinned Kyrians, a species known for their technological prowess and mysterious culture. "Status report," Mark commanded, his deep voice carrying across the bridge. Communications officer Sarah Wells looked up from her console, brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. "Still no sign of the Carrion delegation, Captain. We're maintaining position in the designated coordinates." Mark nodded, tension evident in the rigid set of his shoulders. This meeting would determine whether humanity would be welcomed into the Interstellar Alliance or left to navigate the dangers of space alone. Years of delicate negotiations had led to this moment. "They're precise to a fault," said Executive Officer James Martinez, checking his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. "It's unlike them to be late." "Perhaps precision means something different in their culture," Mark replied, though doubt crept into his mind. The briefing materials had emphasized Carrion punctuality as a cultural cornerstone. Their tardiness was concerning. As if responding to his thoughts, the ship's proximity alert blared. Lieutenant Rick Fisher's fingers flew across the tactical station. "Captain, multiple vessels approaching from Sector 7. "Identify," Mark ordered, stepping closer to the main view screen, his heart rate accelerating despite years of training. "It's them, sir." "One Kiarian flagship and—" Rick hesitated, his voice dropping. "4 military patrol vessels." The atmosphere on the bridge thickened. This wasn't the diplomatic delegation they'd expected. "Weapons status?" Mark asked quietly, a muscle in his jaw tightening. "Defensive systems only, as per protocol," Rick confirmed, his young face pale in the blue light of his console. "But sir, I'm detecting irregular energy signatures from the flagship. Something's not right." Mark studied the approaching formation. The elegant curves of the Kiarian flagship were unmistakable, its iridescent hull designed to mimic the oceanic origins of their species. But its normally smooth trajectory showed subtle irregularities, a graceful dancer suddenly stumbling. The patrol ships maintained tight formation around it, almost protectively. "Sir," Sarah called out, her voice pitched higher than usual, "we're receiving a transmission. Audio only." Mark took a breath to center himself. "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with a voice speaking accented English. "Human vessel Aurelia, this is Commander Salir Taney of the Kiarian ship Luminara. We request immediate assistance. Prepare for our arrival." "Nonum." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Science officer Leon Hope looked up from her readings, her dark eyes concerned beneath her close-cropped black hair. "Captain, their flagship is showing signs of severe reactor instability. Temperature readings are off the charts." Mark took a deep breath. This could be a trap, or a genuine emergency. He turned to his crew, meeting each pair of eyes. "Battle stations, but maintain diplomatic protocols. If they need help, we'll provide it. If this is something else." He left the sentence unfinished, the implication clear. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for whatever might come. Mark watched the approaching vessels with a mixture of caution and determination. First contact was always unpredictable, but this was beginning to look like a baptism by fire. "Open the docking bay," he ordered, "and have medical standing by." Chief Medical Officer Mira Oster's voice came over the comm. "Medical team prepping now, Captain. What should we expect?" Mark stared at the approaching vessels, now close enough to see the subtle damage patterns along the flagship's hull. "Anything, Doctor. Absolutely anything." The Kiarian delegation entered the Aurelia with an unmistakable urgency that dispelled any notion of deception. Commander Salir Taney led the group, her pale blue skin shimmering under the ship's lights. Unlike the recordings Mark had studied, her normally luminescent complexion appeared dull, her large almond-shaped eyes sunken with exhaustion and worry. Her tall frame moved with measured control that couldn't quite hide her fatigue. "Captain Dorn," she acknowledged with a slight bow, her voice melodic despite the obvious strain. "I apologize for our unorthodox arrival. We had no choice." Mark noted the 4 armed Carrion guards flanking her, their postures tense but not threatening. Their elongated fingers rested near what appeared to be energy weapons, but none were drawn. Their blue skin had a darker hue than their commanders, marked with patterns that might indicate rank or lineage. Commander Tene, we were expecting a diplomatic delegation, Mark said, keeping his tone neutral. Circumstances have changed, Salar replied. Her tall, slender frame seemed to sway slightly with fatigue. Our ship's primary reactor is experiencing a catastrophic malfunction. Our engineers estimate complete failure within the hour. Lieutenant Fisher, standing beside Mark, shifted uneasily. A reactor failure of that magnitude would destroy both our vessels and everyone aboard them, Salar finished, her voice sharp like breaking ice. Yes, we are aware. Mark studied her face, searching for any sign of deception, but found only genuine desperation. The subtle luminescence beneath her skin pulsed irregularly, something their briefings had indicated happened only under extreme stress. Why come to us? Surely your patrol vessels could have escorted you back to Carrion space. The damage is too severe. We would never make it. Salar's composure cracked momentarily, a flicker of fear crossing her features before she regained control. Captain, we have civilians aboard. Scientists, diplomats. Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. My daughter. The mention of her daughter seemed to cost her something. Mark understood immediately. This wasn't just a commander trying to save her ship, but a mother protecting her child. He'd made similar calculations himself once, long ago on a mining colony when raiders struck. The memory of his own desperate choices flickered briefly in his mind. We'll need to inspect your reactor systems, Mark said, making his decision. Leon, assemble an engineering team. Leon nodded, already moving toward the communications panel to make the necessary arrangements, her movements precise and efficient. Salar's shoulders relaxed slightly. Thank you, Captain. She gestured to one of her officers, who stepped forward with a data tablet. These are the schematics of our propulsion systems and reactor core design. Mark accepted the device, handing it directly to Leon. Our chief engineer will analyze these immediately. In the meantime, we should evacuate any non-essential personnel from your vessel to ours. That, Salar hesitated, her fingers interlacing in what appeared to be a nervous gesture. That may be problematic. Our life support systems are integrated with the main reactor. The evacuation pods are offline, and the docking mechanisms are failing. Your shuttle would not be able to dock with our ship again once it leaves. Leon looked up from the schematics, her face grave. Captain, their cooling system has completely failed. The reactor's containment field is being maintained by secondary systems, but those are rapidly degrading under the heat stress. Can we repair it? Mark asked, already knowing the answer would be complicated. Leon studied the diagrams, her brow furrowed in concentration. The design is similar to our fusion systems, but more advanced. The issue isn't just the technology. She looked up at Salar. It's environmental. The reactor chamber must be over 200 degrees Celsius by now. Correct, Salar confirmed. Our species cannot physiologically withstand such temperatures, even in protective gear. Our autonomous repair units have failed due to the intense magnetic disruption. But humans might survive it, Leon said quietly, meeting Mark's eyes. Our environmental suits could withstand those temperatures for a short period. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implication became clear. The only way to prevent a catastrophic explosion that would kill everyone was for humans to physically enter the overheating reactor chamber of an alien vessel. How long would they have? Mark asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of the question. Leon calculated quickly. 20 minutes maximum before suit integrity fails. The radiation levels are high, but manageable with our shielding. One of the Carrion guards shifted uncomfortably, murmuring something in their native language. Salar silenced him with a sharp gesture. Mark turned back to Salar. Commander, if we do this, I need your absolute cooperation. No secrets, no hidden agendas. Salar straightened, her luminescent skin pulsing slightly brighter with emotion. Captain Dorn, I place the lives of my crew and my family in your hands. You have my word as a commander and as a mother. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable. Whatever cultural differences existed between their species, the determination of a parent to protect their child transcended them. Mark nodded, making his decision. Leon, assemble your team. We have less than an hour before that reactor goes critical. The digital timer projected onto Leon's heads-up display showed 54 minutes remaining as she finalized the rescue team. Beside her in the equipment bay, pilot Raphael Grayson checked the seals on his environmental suit for the third time, his movements betraying the anxiety his voice tried to hide. "Stop fidgeting, Rafe," Leon said, adjusting her toolkit. "The suits will hold." Raphael's usually confident expression was hidden behind his helmet visor, but his voice betrayed his nervousness. "Yeah, well, excuse me for being thorough when we're about to walk into an alien nuclear barbecue." Despite his words, his hands were steady as they moved over the equipment. Leon knew his history. Raphael had survived a shuttle crash on Mars 5 years earlier, the only one of 7 crew members to walk away. His humor masked a man who understood exactly how quickly things could go wrong in space. Dr. Mira Oster, the Aurelia's chief medical officer, secured the last of her emergency supplies. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her movements efficient after 20 years of emergency medicine. "The anti-radiation meds should give us some additional protection, but don't push the time limit. These aren't designed for prolonged exposure." 2 Kiarian technicians, introduced as Varel and Nelith, watched the humans prepare with undisguised fascination. Their slender blue fingers moved deftly over their own equipment, specialized diagnostic tools that would guide the humans through the unfamiliar technology. Varel, the male, had darker skin patterns that ran across his forehead and down his neck, while Nelith, female, had lighter markings that seemed to glow faintly around her eyes. "Your thermal resistance is remarkable," Varel commented, his English precise but stilted. "Our bodies would begin systemic failure at half the temperatures your suits can endure." "Lucky us," Raphael muttered, then caught himself. "Sorry that was. I meant no disrespect." Nelith tilted her head slightly. "None taken. We understand the concept of using humor to manage fear. It is not so different among our kind." The simple acknowledgement of shared psychology across species helped ease the tension in the room. Leon found herself appreciating the moment of connection amid the crisis. Captain Dorn entered the bay, his expression grim but determined. "The situation on the Luminara is deteriorating faster than expected. Their emergency containment fields are down to 30% efficiency." Leon felt her stomach tighten. "We need to move now." Mark nodded. "The docking tube is secure, but barely. Their structural integrity is compromised in several sections. You'll need to move carefully." He looked at each team member in turn, his gaze lingering on Leon. "Chief Hope, you're in command of the operation. Your priority is to stabilize the reactor cooling system. If that's not possible, find a way to safely eject the core." "Understood, Captain." Leon felt the weight of the responsibility settle on her shoulders. 3 years ago, she'd been a junior engineer on a colony ship. Now she was leading a mission that could save or doom 2 crews. Mark's voice softened slightly. 45 minutes. If you haven't succeeded by then, return immediately. That's an order." Leon nodded, knowing what he wasn't saying. If they couldn't fix the problem in 45 minutes, they'd need those last 15 minutes to escape before the explosion. "Good luck," Mark said, stepping back as the airlock door slid open. The captain wasn't one for grand speeches or emotional displays, but his eyes communicated what his words didn't: pride, concern, and faith in their abilities. The team filed through, Leon in the lead, followed by Raphael and Mira, with the 2 Kiarian technicians bringing up the rear. The flexible docking tube connecting the 2 ships vibrated ominously beneath their feet, the transparent walls revealing the yawning void of space just inches away. Leon tried not to think about how easily the tube could rupture as they crossed the 100-meter gap between the vessels. Instead, she focused on the mission parameters, mentally reviewing the schematics Salir had provided. The Kiarian reactor used a controlled plasma confinement system not unlike Earth's most advanced fusion reactors, but with technological refinements that made their system nearly 40% more efficient. Under normal circumstances, she would have been excited to study such advanced engineering. Now she just hoped she could keep it from exploding. The airlock at the Kiarian end cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Immediately, Leon's suit sensors registered the elevated temperature, even in this outer section of the ship. "Environmental conditions deteriorating rapidly," Varel warned, consulting a device on his wrist that pulsed with soft blue light. "The main corridors to the reactor level are experiencing gravity fluctuations due to power surges." "Lead the way," Leon said. "We'll follow your guidance." The interior of the Luminara was unlike anything Leon had seen before. Where human ships favored utilitarian designs, the Kiarian vessel's corridors curved in graceful arcs, the walls embedded with bioluminescent panels that pulsed with a soft blue light. But now many of those panels were dark or flickering erratically, and the elegant curves were marred by emergency bulkheads and exposed circuitry. As they moved deeper into the ship, the temperature continued to rise. Leon's suit cooling system hummed loudly, struggling to maintain a safe internal temperature. Sweat beaded on her forehead, trickling down into her eyes. She blinked it away, focusing on the path ahead. Radiation levels increasing, Mira warned, checking her medical scanner. We're at 40% of maximum safe exposure. The gravity shifted suddenly, causing Raphael to stumble against a wall. Whoa! He exclaimed as his tools floated briefly before crashing back to the deck when gravity reasserted itself. The reactor's magnetic containment field is affecting the artificial gravity generators, Nelith explained, her slender frame seeming to handle the fluctuations better than the heavier humans. It will get worse as we approach the core. A series of sharp cracks echoed through the corridor ahead, followed by a rush of superheated air that made the environmental suit's external temperature alarms blare in warning. Coolant line rupture, Varel shouted, his normally calm voice rising in pitch. We need a detour through the evacuation sector. They changed course, navigating through increasingly damaged sections of the ship. Twice they had to physically force open doors whose automated systems had failed. The heat was becoming oppressive, the metal walls visibly warping in some places. How much further? Raphael asked, his breathing labored as they manhandled a fallen support beam out of their path. His suit's external temperature gauge was edging toward the red zone, the cooling system working at maximum capacity. The evacuation sector is just ahead, Nelith replied, her voice strained. Even the Kiarians in their specialized environmental suits were beginning to show signs of stress. From there, we can access the maintenance tunnels that lead directly to the reactor control room. As they rounded the corner into what appeared to be a gathering area with rows of emergency equipment, Mira's scanner emitted a sharp beep. I'm detecting life signs, weak but present. Nelith rushed forward, her movements suddenly urgent. This is where the non-essential personnel were gathered for emergency evacuation when the systems failed. In the center of the room, slumped in what looked like a specialized medical pod, lay a female Kiarian. Her skin was a sickly pale blue, almost white, with none of the luminescence that characterized healthy members of her species. Her chest barely moved with shallow breaths. Even to human eyes unfamiliar with Kiarian physiology, she appeared to be dying. Princess Iressa, Varel exclaimed, dropping to his knees beside the pod. Leon's eyes widened in surprise. Princess. Commander Tini's daughter, Nelith explained hurriedly, helping Varel check the young Kiarian's vital signs. She was overseeing the civilian evacuation when the environmental systems failed in this section. Leon looked at the unconscious figure with new understanding. This was the daughter Salir had mentioned, the one whose safety had clearly weighed so heavily on the commander. Mira pushed forward, medical scanner in hand. Her core temperature is dangerously elevated, and she's showing signs of severe hypoxia. Her cardiovascular system is shutting down. The two Kiarian technicians looked at each other in obvious distress. Our medical facilities are offline with the main power grid, Varel said, his voice tight with suppressed emotion, and we cannot move her to your ship in this condition. Mira was already digging through her medical kit. I need to stabilize her before we can even consider moving her. She pulled out several devices but frowned as she tried to calibrate them. The magnetic interference is affecting my equipment. I can't get an accurate reading to administer treatment. Leon checked her timer, 42 minutes remaining. We can't stay here long. The reactor? We cannot abandon the princess, Nelith interrupted, her normally calm voice rising with emotion. The patterns on her skin had darkened, a physiological sign of distress they'd been briefed about. And we won't, Leon assured her firmly, but we need to work quickly. The unspoken dilemma hung in the air. Their primary mission was to stabilize the reactor and save everyone aboard both ships, but leaving the princess to die while they continued to the reactor seemed unconscionable. Yet every minute they delayed increased the risk of catastrophic failure. Mira continued trying to adjust her medical devices, muttering under her breath as each attempt failed. I need to check her pulse manually, but her skin is too hot to touch directly, and these gloves are too thick for me to feel anything. Leon moved to help, navigating around the cramped space of the evacuation pod. The princess lay motionless, her features delicate even in their pallor. Despite the obvious physiological differences between their species, there was something achingly vulnerable and human about her struggle to breathe. As Leon leaned over to examine the princess's monitoring devices, her boot caught on a protruding piece of equipment. She stumbled, instinctively reaching out to catch herself. Her bare hand, she had removed her glove moments earlier to adjust a delicate circuit, landed on Irissa's neck, directly over her pulse point. The effect was instantaneous and shocking. Irissa's eyes flew open, her back arching as she gasped deeply, drawing air into her lungs with desperate force. The sickly pallor of her skin vanished, replaced by a sudden flush of vibrant blue that pulsed with inner light, spreading outward from the point of contact like ripples in water. Leon jerked her hand back in surprise, nearly falling backward. A tingling sensation spread up her arm, not painful but distinctly unusual, like static electricity, but warmer. What? What happened? Raphael stammered, staring at the princess in astonishment. Mira's scanner beeped rapidly as she pointed it at Irissa. Her vitals are stabilizing, heart rate normalizing, oxygen saturation improving dramatically. She looked at Leon in amazement. The direct skin contact, it triggered some kind of autonomic response in her system. Varel and Nelith stood frozen, their expressions a mixture of shock and awe. The legends, Varel whispered, his voice barely audible. The ancient texts speak of the healing touch, but it was believed to be metaphorical, not literal. Irissa's eyes, a deep indigo blue, focused gradually on Leon. Her lips moved, forming words too soft to hear. Leon leaned closer, careful not to touch her again without understanding what had happened. Princess, can you hear me? Your warmth, Irissa whispered, her voice melodic even in its weakness. It awakens the cold blood. The old stories were true. Her gaze was intense, filled with wonder. We called you star people in our oldest myths, ones whose touch brings life. Mira was scanning frantically, trying to document the phenomenon. Her cellular activity has increased exponentially. It's as if her body was in a state of hibernation and your touch triggered a massive release of endorphins and adrenaline, or whatever their equivalent is. We need to move, Raphael reminded them, checking his own timer. Miracle or not, we still have a reactor about to blow. Irissa struggled to sit up, her movements gaining strength with each second. Go, she said to Leon. Save my people. I will recover. Her voice carried a quiet dignity that belied her recent brush with death. Varel touched Leon's arm. I will stay with the princess. Nelith knows the reactor systems better than I do. Leon nodded, making a quick decision. Dr. Oster, stay with them, monitor the princess, and prepare her for evacuation if possible. She turned to Raphael and Nelith. Let's move. We have 38 minutes to prevent a catastrophe. As they raced from the evacuation sector toward the reactor control room, Leon couldn't help glancing back at her hand, wondering what property of human touch could possibly have such a dramatic effect on Kierian physiology. But there was no time to dwell on it now. The lives of both crews depended on their next actions. The path to the reactor grew increasingly treacherous. Entire sections of corridor had buckled under the heat stress, forcing the team to crawl through maintenance ducts and climb over debris. The temperature continued to rise, pushing their environmental suits to their limits. Suit integrity at 70%, Raphael reported, his voice tense. External temperature approaching 180 degrees Celsius. Schukhorn. We're almost there, Nelith assured them, though her own environmental suit was showing signs of stress, the material darkening as it absorbed the intense heat. They finally reached a massive circular door marked with Kierian warning symbols. Nelith pressed her palm against a recognition panel, which flickered weakly before the door grudgingly slid open, revealing the reactor control room beyond. The scene inside was chaotic. Emergency lights flashed in irregular patterns, and automated systems beeped urgent warnings in the Kierian language. Through a reinforced viewport, Leon could see the reactor core itself, a pulsating sphere of energy contained within a complex array of magnetic field generators, many of which were visibly failing. The cooling system controls are there. Nelith pointed to a bank of instruments. But the automated protocols are preventing manual override. The system detected the critical failure and locked down all functions to prevent cascade reactions. Leon examined the control panels quickly. We need to bypass the safety protocols to get direct access. Raphael moved to another console. If we do that, we lose all the automated safeguards. One wrong move, and we have no choice, Leon interrupted. Those protocols are designed for normal operations. This is anything but normal. Nelith hesitated. Bypassing the central security matrix is forbidden under Carrion law. It would require command authorization. Your commander gave us full authority, Leon reminded her, and her daughter's life is among those at stake. After a moment of internal struggle, Nelith nodded. I will assist you, but we must work quickly. The reactor's containment field is already at critical levels. For the next 10 minutes, they worked feverishly, Nelith translating the Chiarian control systems while Leon and Raphael implemented the bypass procedures. The heat grew more intense by the minute, their suits' cooling systems struggling to compensate. There, Leon finally announced as the last security protocol deactivated. We have direct access to the cooling systems. The primary coolant pumps are offline, Raphael reported, studying the readouts, and the backup systems are operating at less than 20% capacity. Nelith pointed to a schematic on one of the screens. The emergency coolant reservoirs are intact, but the distribution system is damaged here, here, and here. She indicated 3 critical junctions. We need to manually redirect the flow through the auxiliary channels. Leon calculated quickly. That would require physically accessing the control valves in the reactor maintenance bay. She looked through the viewport at the glowing chamber beyond the control room. In there, the maintenance bay glowed an angry orange-red, the metal structures within visibly distorted by the extreme heat. Even from here, Leon could feel the intensity radiating through the reinforced viewport. Raphael checked his suit readings. Temperature in that chamber is over 200 Celsius. Our suits will only last minutes at that level. His voice was steady, but Leon could hear the underlying tension. Then we work fast, Leon said grimly. Nelith, you stay here and coordinate from the control room. Rafe and I will handle the valves. Before Nelith could protest, Leon was already moving toward the heavy shielded door that separated the control room from the maintenance bay. Raphael followed, his face set in determination behind his visor. Suit integrity at 65%, he reported as Leon operated the door mechanism. The moment we step through, that number's going to drop fast. Leon nodded. Focus on the job. Nothing else matters. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of silent understanding passing between them. They'd worked together for 3 years, survived half a dozen crises together. This might be their last. Hey, Raphael said suddenly, remember that time on Europa when the ice drill broke through early? Leon allowed herself a small smile, recognizing his attempt to lighten the moment. You mean when you fell into the subsurface ocean and came up claiming you'd seen a mermaid? It was a very convincing shadow, he replied with a forced grin. Just saying, we've beaten worse odds. The door slid open, releasing a wave of heat so intense it felt like a physical blow. Leon's suit immediately blared warnings as the external temperature sensors maxed out. They stepped into hell. The reactor maintenance bay was a circular chamber surrounding the core containment vessel. Normally filled with robotic maintenance systems, it now stood empty, the automated units having failed under the extreme conditions. The metal walkways and control stations glowed a dull red with heat, and the air shimmered with thermal distortion. Valve Control Station Alpha is 20 meters to your right. Nelith's voice crackled over their comms, distorted by the intense radiation. Beta Station is on the opposite side, 40 meters around the perimeter. I'll take Beta, Raphael said immediately. It's farther, but I'm faster. Leon wanted to argue, the longer distance meant more exposure, but there was no time. Go. Be careful. They separated, each racing toward their assigned stations. Leon's world narrowed to the path before her and the rapidly declining numbers on her suit display. 58% integrity, 52, 47. The valve control station was a nightmare of superheated metal. Leon pulled tools from her belt, the specialized heat-resistant alloys still warm to the touch even through her gloves. The control wheel that would redirect the coolant flow was expanded from the heat, jammed in position. Status, she called over the comm. Almost there, Raphael grunted, his breathing labored. Valves stuck. Leon applied leverage to her own valve, muscles straining against the unyielding metal. Same here. The thermal expansion has seized the mechanisms. Each second they spent in the chamber was another percentage point off their suit integrity. The heads-up display in Leon's helmet flashed red warnings as the internal temperature began to rise despite the cooling system's best efforts. Wait, Raphael said suddenly. There's a manual release port. If I can... A sharp cry of pain cut off his words. Rafe! Leon shouted, her heart lurching. What happened? Suit, breach, he gasped. Small tear. Burns, not bad. Keep going. Leon wanted to abandon her station and run to him, but knew she couldn't. Every second counted now, not just for them, but for everyone on both ships. Instead, she redoubled her efforts on the valve, finally locating a similar manual release port on her own control station. Nelith, I need the emergency override sequence for coolant system Alpha. Sending now, Nelith replied, her voice tight with tension. A series of carrion symbols appeared on Leon's heads-up display. She input them into the manual release port, her fingers slipping on the controls as sweat poured down her face inside the helmet. Her suit integrity was down to 38%. Got it, Raphael called suddenly. Beta valve releasing? Almost simultaneously, Leon's valve control gave way with a metallic groan. Alpha valve open, coolant flowing. On the far side of the chamber, she could see Raphael slumped against his control station, one hand pressed against his side, where his suit showed darkened damage. Coolant pressure rising, Nelith reported from the control room. The automated systems are responding to the manual override. Core temperature beginning to stabilize. Leon was already moving toward Raphael, her legs feeling leaden in the oppressive heat. Rafe, hold on. I'm coming. Stay back, he warned. My suit's compromising. Integrity at 20%. Leon ignored him, reaching his side and examining the damage. A small tear had formed where the suit material had been stressed beyond its limits, allowing the superheated air to contact his skin. An angry red burn was visible through the opening. We need to seal that, she said, pulling emergency patch material from her kit. No time, Raphael insisted. Suit won't last. Need to get out now. He was right. Both their suit integrity numbers were dropping rapidly, and the patch would only slow the decline, not stop it. The reactor core, while beginning to stabilize, was still dangerously hot. Can you walk? Leon asked, fighting to keep her voice calm. Raphael nodded grimly. Run if I have to. Supporting each other, they made their way back toward the control room door, each step an exercise in determination as their suit systems struggled against the overwhelming heat. Leon's vision began to blur, the excessive heat causing her to grow lightheaded despite the suit's oxygen supply. Just as they reached the door, a loud bang echoed through the chamber. A pressure valve had blown, sending a jet of superheated steam directly toward them. Raphael reacted instinctively, shoving Leon through the doorway to safety. The steam caught him full in the back, the force throwing him forward into the control room as the door automatically sealed behind them. Rafe. Leon scrambled to his side as he lay motionless on the floor. His suit was severely damaged, the back panel nearly destroyed by the steam impact. Nelith was already there, helping Leon remove his helmet. Raphael's face was flushed red from the heat, his breathing shallow and rapid. Angry blisters were already forming on the exposed skin of his neck and cheek. Core temperature continuing to decrease, Nelith reported, dividing her attention between the injured human and the reactor controls. The automated systems have re-engaged. We've done it. Leon barely heard her, focused entirely on Raphael's condition. Rafe, stay with me. We're getting you out of here. His eyes fluttered open, a pained smile forming on his lips. Did we save the princess? And everyone else, you idiot, Leon replied, tears mixing with sweat on her face. Now hold still while we get you stabilized. Raphael's hand found hers, squeezing weakly. Worth it, he whispered. All of it. Worth it to see. What's out here? Leon held his gaze, terrified by the resignation she saw there. Don't you dare. Don't you dare check out on me now, Grayson. We've got decades of space to explore, remember? You promised to show me Saturn's rings from that observation post on Titan. The reminder seemed to focus him. Right. Titan. Can't miss that. They worked quickly to apply emergency medical treatment, Nelith assisting with surprisingly knowledgeable first aid for Raphael's burns. The carrion applied a gel-like substance from a small container she carried, which seemed to immediately ease Raphael's pain. This will help stabilize the damaged tissue, she explained. It is not a cure, but it will prevent further deterioration until we reach your medical facilities. Once he was stable enough to move, they began the arduous journey back through the damaged ship. The return trip was slower, hampered by Raphael's injuries and the ongoing structural damage to the vessel. But with the reactor stabilizing, the worst of the heat was gradually subsiding, and the gravity fluctuations were less severe. When they reached the evacuation sector, they found Princess Irissa sitting upright, her color fully restored. Dr. Oster and Varel had fashioned a portable life support unit from salvaged equipment, preparing her for transport. Irissa's eyes widened at the sight of the injured Raphael. "He is hurt," she said, her melodic voice stronger than before. "Because of us." "Because of his own stubborn heroism," Leon corrected, helping ease Raphael onto an emergency stretcher. "But he'll live, thanks to your people's first aid knowledge. And thanks to your touch," Irissa said softly, looking at Leon's hands with undisguised fascination. "Our species has long wondered what would happen if we ever encountered beings whose bodies generate more heat than our own. Our ancient texts speak of the vivifying touch, but it was considered mere legend." Mira was still monitoring the princess's vital signs. The human body temperature is naturally several degrees higher than carrion normal. When Leon touched your skin directly, the heat transfer seems to have triggered a massive autonomic response in your system. "Like jump-starting an engine," Raphael murmured from the stretcher, his voice weak but determined to participate. "A crude but accurate analogy," Varel agreed. The princess was in thermal shock, her body beginning to shut down to preserve essential functions. The direct heat transfer provided the energy catalyst her cells needed to restart normal function. Leon checked her timer. 23 minutes had passed since they had stabilized the reactor. "We need to move. The ship's structural integrity is still compromised, and we don't know how long the repairs will hold." Together, they made their way back toward the docking tube, moving as quickly as Raphael's condition would allow. The Luminara's corridors seemed less threatening now, the emergency lights steadier as the power systems recovered. As they approached the final corridor leading to the airlock, a violent shudder ran through the ship. A support beam ahead of them groaned, metal twisting as structural integrity continued to fail. "The docking tube!" Nelith exclaimed. "The connection is becoming unstable." They increased their pace, but Raphael's stretcher made navigating the increasingly treacherous passageway difficult. With each passing second, the vibrations grew more violent. "We're not going to make it like this," Mira said, checking Raphael's vitals. "He needs medical attention now, not in 10 minutes when we finally get through this mess." Leon made a split-second decision. "Mira, take Raphael through now. Get him to the Aurelia's medbay. The rest of us will follow." "I'm not leaving you behind," Mira protested. "That's an order, Doctor," Leon said firmly. "We'll be right behind you, but he needs immediate treatment." After a moment's hesitation, Mira nodded. "Don't dawdle." She and Varel took Raphael's stretcher and moved ahead at a faster pace, disappearing around a bend in the corridor. Leon, Irissa, and Nelith continued more carefully, navigating around the increasingly unstable structures. Just as they reached the final stretch, a deafening crack split the air. The ceiling above them buckled, tons of metal and circuitry collapsing downward. Leon reacted without thinking, throwing herself forward to push Irissa and Nelith clear of the falling debris. Pain exploded in her leg as a metal strut pinned her to the floor, the weight crushing down on her. "Leon!" Irissa cried, scrambling back toward her, despite Nelith's attempt to hold her back. "Stay back," Leon warned, assessing her situation. The collapsed section hadn't fully given way, but it was only a matter of time before the entire corridor failed. "The structure isn't stable." "We won't leave you," Irissa insisted, her blue eyes fierce with determination. She turned to Nelith. "Help me move this." Together, the two carrions struggled with the metal beam pinning Leon down. Despite their slender builds, they managed to lift it just enough for Leon to drag herself free, agony shooting through her injured leg. "Can you stand?" Nelith asked anxiously. Leon tried, but her leg buckled beneath her. "Not well. You two go ahead." "No," Irissa said simply. She moved to Leon's side, draping the human's arm around her shoulders. "Together or not at all." Nelith took Leon's other side, and with their support, she managed to hobble forward as the corridor continued to deteriorate behind them. The pain was excruciating, but the alternative, being left behind as the ship broke apart, was worse. When they finally reached the airlock, they found Commander Salertain waiting anxiously with Captain Dorn. Her face transformed with joy and relief at the sight of her daughter, alive and alert. Only then did she notice Leon's injury, her expression sobering immediately. The human is hurt, she said, gesturing to several Kiarian crew members who rushed forward to help. Just a crushed leg, Leon said through gritted teeth. Nothing compared to what Raphael went through. As they were helped through the airlock and back onto the Aurelia, the docking tube behind them visibly distorted, the connection becoming increasingly unstable. Disengage immediately, Mark ordered once the last of the Kiarians were aboard. Tactical, establish a tractor beam to hold the Luminara at a safe distance until they can restore propulsion. The Aurelia shuddered slightly as the docking mechanisms retracted and the tractor beam engaged. Through a viewport, Leon could see the Kiarian flagship drifting slowly away, its elegant curves now marred by visible damage, but its core no longer threatening to destroy everything in its vicinity. You saved my daughter. Again. Commander Salir's voice was thick with emotion as she approached Leon, who was being treated by a medical technician. And you were injured ensuring her safe return. It was the right thing to do, Leon said simply, wincing as the medic examined her leg. It was beyond duty, Salir corrected. It was. What is your word? Heroism. Mark joined them, his weathered face showing rare relief. Chief Hope, report when you're able. For now, get to medical and let them fix that leg. Yes, sir, Leon replied, grateful for the excuse to escape the unexpected attention. As she was helped toward the medical bay, Irisa fell into step beside her stretcher. I will accompany you, the princess said in a tone that brooked no argument. My mother understands. Leon was too exhausted and in too much pain to protest. She simply nodded, closing her eyes briefly as the adrenaline of the past hour began to fade, leaving her drained and acutely aware of every bruise and burn. In the medical bay, Raphael was already undergoing treatment, his burns being attended to by Dr. Oster, an Icarian physician who had been part of the diplomatic delegation. His condition was stable, though he remained unconscious, sedated to spare him the worst of the pain. Leon's injuries were less severe, a fractured tibia and fibula, along with some tissue damage, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. As the medical staff worked on her leg, Irisa remained nearby, watching the procedure with intense interest. Your medical technology is different from ours, she observed. Less, integrated with the body. We're a younger spacefaring species, Leon explained, trying to focus on conversation rather than the pain. Our medical tech is still catching up to our ambitions. Yet you risked everything to save us, Irisa said softly. Why? The question caught Leon off guard. What do you mean? You had no obligation to help us. Our ship's failure was not your responsibility. You could have maintained a safe distance and watched as we perished. Instead, you risked your lives for strangers. Leon considered the question seriously. It's who we are, she finally said, or at least it's who we try to be. When someone needs help and we can provide it, we do. Even at great personal cost. Sometimes, especially then. Leon glanced over at Raphael's unconscious form. The greater the sacrifice, the more it matters. Irisa's blue skin pulsed slightly with emotion. My people have much to learn from yours, I think. We have focused so long on technological advancement that we sometimes forget the importance of more immediate virtues. Their conversation was interrupted as Commander Salir entered the medical bay, accompanied by Captain Dorn. The Kiarian commander's posture had regained some of its regal bearing, though fatigue still showed in the dimness of her skin's luminescence. The emergency repair teams report that the Luminara's primary systems have been stabilized, Salir announced. Thanks to your intervention, we should be able to restore propulsion within the day. Mark nodded. We'll maintain position and provide any additional assistance needed. You have done more than enough, Salir said, her voice solemn. More than we had any right to expect. She looked from Leanne to the unconscious Raphael. Your crew has shown exceptional courage and skill. Irisa stepped forward, addressing both leaders. Mother, there is something else. Something remarkable. She gestured toward Leon. When I was near death in the evacuation sector, Chief Hope's touch revived me. A direct transfer of thermal energy that triggered my body's recovery systems. Salir's eyes widened. The vivifying touch. But that is merely legend, a story from the ancient times before we achieved space flight. It is real, Irisa insisted. I experienced it, as did the technicians who witnessed it. Varel, who had entered behind the commanders, stepped forward. It is true, Commander. The human's touch revived the princess when our medical technology could not. It was extraordinary. Salir turned to Mark, her expression difficult to read. Captain, do you understand what this means? Mark glanced at Leon, who looked equally puzzled. I'm afraid I don't, Commander. It means, Salir explained, that our species are physiologically compatible in ways we never imagined. The ancient texts speak of the warm-blood people who would come from the stars, whose touch could restore life to our kind. For millennia, it was considered symbolic, a metaphor for the rejuvenating power of new ideas. But if it is literal, then our meeting has implications far beyond diplomacy, Mark finished. Precisely. Salir straightened, her commanding presence returning as she addressed Captain Dorn. Captain, your crew has done more than save our ship. They have discovered a compatibility between our species that none of our scientists predicted. A simple touch that can revive our people from the brink of death. It seems our meeting has proven more significant than either of us anticipated, Mark said, his usual stoicism giving way to genuine wonder. Once safely back aboard the Aurelia, Raphael was moved to a recovery room, his condition stable, but requiring ongoing care for his extensive burns. The Carrion medical staff had provided specialized healing compounds that accelerated tissue regeneration, reducing what would have been months of recovery to potentially weeks. In the conference room, Commander Salir Tenny stood before the assembled officers of both ships, her daughter at her side. The princess's recovery had been remarkable, her vitality fully restored within hours of the initial touch. We came seeking diplomatic relations, Salir began, her melodic voice carrying easily through the room. Instead, we found saviors and discovered a biological compatibility that changes everything we thought we knew about interspecies contact. She bowed deeply to Captain Dorn and the human crew. Your instincts and determination saved not only our princess, but thousands of lives that would have been lost had our reactor exploded. We considered ourselves technologically superior, but forgot the power of direct intervention, of physical courage, and the healing power of touch. Mark acknowledged the gesture with a respectful nod. We're grateful we could help, Commander. And equally intrigued by the implications of this physiological discovery. Princess Irissa stepped forward, her indigo eyes finding Leon in the crowd. Chief Hope, your accidental touch has opened a new chapter in our understanding of human-Carrion relations. Our medical scientists are eager to study this phenomenon, with your permission. Leon nodded, still somewhat uncomfortable with the attention. Of course, Princess. Anything that helps build understanding between our peoples. Salir turned back to Mark. Captain Dorn, on behalf of the Carrion High Council, I propose more than the basic alliance we originally sought. I offer a full partnership, equal exchange of knowledge and joint medical research programs to explore this unique compatibility between our species. A full partnership would be unprecedented, Mark replied, though his tone suggested he welcomed the idea. It would require approval from Earth's Interstellar Council. As our proposal will require approval from the Carrion High Council, Salir acknowledged. But I believe both governing bodies will recognize the significance of what has transpired here. The potential benefits of this discovery extend far beyond politics. The formal signing of a preliminary alliance took place 3 days later, after emergency repairs to the Luminara had been completed. The Carrion flagship, now stable and functioning at near normal capacity, maintained position alongside the Aurelia as the two commanders finalized the historic agreement. In the Aurelia's medical bay, Raphael sat propped up on his bed, the worst of his burns already responding well to the combined human and Carrion treatments. His normally jovial face was subdued, marked with healing blisters, but his eyes retained their characteristic spark. So, you're a celebrity now, he teased as Leon entered to check on him, limping slightly despite the accelerated healing of her leg fractures. The human with the magic touch. Leon rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. Hardly. The Carrion scientists have already determined it's simply a matter of thermodynamics. Their bodies enter a conservation state when stressed, and our higher body temperature provides the energy catalyst to restart their systems. Still, Raphael said more seriously, you saved the princess, and I hear she's quite taken with you. Keeps asking about the warm one, according to the Carrion medics. She's curious, that's all. Leon checked his vital signs on the monitor, satisfied with his progress. How are you feeling? Like I went swimming in a volcano, he admitted. But the Carrion healing gel is amazing stuff. Doc says I'll be on my feet in another day or two. A soft chime announced another visitor. Princess Irissa stood in the doorway, her royal blue skin luminescent with health. Chief Hope, Officer Grayson, she greeted them, her melodic voice carrying a new confidence. I hope I am not intruding. Not at all, Your Highness, Raphael said, attempting to sit up straighter and wincing with the effort. Irissa glided into the room, her movements fluid and graceful. I wanted to thank you both personally, away from the formal ceremonies. What you did, risking your lives for people you had never met, it has changed how our entire species views humanity. Leon shook her head. We did what anyone would do. No, Irissa said firmly, not anyone. It requires a special kind of courage to walk into fire for strangers. She approached Raphael's bedside, looking at his bandaged arms with evident distress. And a special kind of sacrifice. Raphael grinned, though the expression was clearly painful. Worth it to see the look on everyone's face when Leon's touch brought you back to life. That was a moment for the history books. Irissa's skin pulsed with what they had learned was the Kierian equivalent of a blush. Indeed, our scientists are fascinated by the phenomenon. They believe it may lead to revolutionary medical applications for both our species. She turned to Leon, her large indigo eyes intense. May I? She asked, extending one slender blue hand. Understanding the request, Leon nodded and reached out, allowing her fingers to touch Irissa's palm. The princess closed her eyes briefly as their skin made contact, the blue of her hand brightening subtly around Leon's fingers. Your warmth, she murmured. It calls to something deep within us, something we had forgotten in our pursuit of technological advancement. She withdrew her hand gently. My mother has appointed me a special liaison to the Human Kierian Medical Research Initiative. I hope we will work together often, Chief Hope. I'd like that, Your Highness, Leon replied sincerely. After Irissa departed, Raphael lay back against his pillows, a knowing smile on his face. Definitely taken with you. Leon threw a clean bandage at him. Shut up and heal, hero. He caught the bandage weakly, his expression suddenly more serious. You know, when I was in that reactor chamber, feeling my suit fail, I thought, this is it. End of the line. Leon sat on the edge of his bed, her own expression sobering. I know. I saw it in your eyes. But here's the thing, he continued. I wasn't afraid. Not really. I looked around at that alien tech, at the stuff we were trying to save, and all I could think was, what a way to go. Helping people we'd never met, a completely different species, in a ship unlike anything humans had built. He met her eyes. That's why we're out here, isn't it? Not just to see new things, but to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Leon nodded slowly. Something like that, yeah. Raphael's smile returned, though gentler now. So next time you decide to stumble and accidentally heal an alien princess, maybe give me a heads up. I'd like to be standing somewhere I can see the expressions. I'll do my best, she promised, squeezing his hand before standing. Get some rest. Captain says the Kierians have invited a delegation to visit their homeworld once the Luminara is fully repaired. You'll want to be on your feet by then. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Raphael replied, his eyelids already drooping with fatigue. Later that evening, Leon stood at the same viewport where Captain Dorn had awaited the Kierian delegation just days earlier. The Luminara hung in space alongside the Aurelia, its elegant curves now illuminated with the steady blue glow of fully functioning systems. Mark joined her, his weathered face thoughtful as he gazed at the alien vessel. Quite a first contact, wouldn't you say? Leon nodded. Not exactly what any of us expected. The best discoveries rarely are, Mark replied. He turned to face her. The Kierian High Council has requested that you join the first official diplomatic mission to their homeworld. As the initiator of the vivifying touch, you've become something of a symbol to them. Leon grimaced. I just fell, Captain. Right place, right time. Sometimes that's all fate needs, Mark said with a rare smile. The mission leaves in 2 weeks. Plenty of time for Raphael to recover enough to join you. He's already volunteered, burns and all. Of course he has, Leon said, unable to hide her affection for her impulsive colleague. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars beyond the two ships. You know what fascinates me most about all this? Mark finally said. With all our technology, all our advancements, it was the simplest, most human thing that made the difference. A touch. Leon thought about Erissa's words about warmth in the ancient Kierian legends. Maybe that's what we all need to remember as we move further into space. Technology fails. Ships break down. But human courage, human warmth, that endures. As if in response to her words, the lights of the Luminara pulsed briefly brighter, a carrion salute across the void. Leon raised her hand in return, knowing that somewhere on that ship, a blue-skinned princess was looking back, forever connected by an accidental touch that had changed two worlds. Later, alone in her quarters, Leon reviewed the preliminary medical reports on the human-Kierian physiological compatibility. The data was fascinating. Kierian body temperature naturally ran several degrees cooler than human normal, and their cellular structures included specialized heat-sensitive receptors that could trigger massive systemic responses when stimulated by the right temperature gradient. It wasn't magic, just biology. And yet, she flexed her hand, remembering the tingling sensation when she touched Erissa's skin. There was something profound about the discovery, something that transcended the clinical descriptions in the reports. Two species, evolved on worlds light years apart, with physiologies that complemented each other in ways no one could have predicted. Perhaps there was a deeper message in their accidental discovery, a reminder that in the vastness of space, with all its dangers and wonders, connection remained the most powerful force of all. Outside her viewport, the stars continued their eternal vigil, silent witnesses to the unfolding story of two species, learning that sometimes salvation came not through advanced technology or careful diplomacy, but through a simple human touch.